I think these classified documents will be the end of him. They can't say that, of course. He can't say, I'm leaving because of the classified document scandal. But he'll talk about the health of his family or something like that, right? I guess Jill had some skin cancer removed. So they'll use some health thing like that as an excuse. He also can't say he's senile. He's like, oh, can't do it anymore. Alzheimer's really kicking in. Like, you can't do it. So how's he going to get out? I don't exactly know. I don't know what his smooth exit will be, but I think he's done. His own party clearly doesn't want him anymore. This is all set up. I think all these document stuff is just a big old setup to get him out of here. They wanted him to go, but he was like, well, let's see how the midterm election goes, and if it's bad, I'll leave. If it's not, I'll stay. And they were really good for him. So he's like, well, I'm the belle of the ball. I'm going to stay now. And the party elites are like, oh, no, how do we get rid of him? And that's what all this document stuff is. That's my conspiracy theory, and I'm sticking with it. Now, he won't be able to get anything passed in these next 2 years through the House. We'll see if Kevin McCarthy stays strong as Speaker of the House. We had a wonderful special about this a couple weeks ago. You can check it out at thefirsttv.com. I believe, though, that the House will stay strong and not get anything through for the next 2 years. But, I mean, let's face it, the election takes a year, the 2024 presidential election. So what's Biden going to do in the next year? And nothing is the answer. And this is great, by the way. Gridlock is good. Gridlock is the point. It's how our founders designed it. So bring on the gridlock. But what's next for Joe? What's next for the American?
Classified materials next to your Corvette. What were you thinking?
Let me, I'm going to get a chance to speak on all this, God willing, soon. But as I said earlier this week, people, and by the way, my Corvette's in a locked garage, okay? So it's not like you're sitting out in the street. But at any rate,
was in a locked garage.
yes, as well as my Corvette. So we're going to see all this unfold. I'm confident. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you.
It's such an amazing clip. All right, that's a historic clip. We'll remember that one for a long time. That's fantastic. Our friend John Phillips is here, host of The John Phillips Show on KABC in LA, also a syndicated columnist on LA Daily News and the Orange County Register. John, thanks for being here. I think I'm in crazy town right now, and please walk me back from it if you disagree. I think these documents are a setup to push him out to not run in 2024. Talk me off that ledge.
Well, I don't necessarily think you're wrong, because if you think about it, if you're in the Democratic Party and you want to replace him as your nominee in 2024, this really is the perfect way to cut ties. Because if you say that the guy is not mentally capable of doing the job because you could scoop his brains out with a soup ladle, then you got to get rid of him right away. It's not like you can wait 2 years and then let him have access to the nuclear football. If you go that route, you have to get rid of him immediately, and then you're stuck with Kamala Harris. You can't replace her, or you're sexist, you're racist, and she will come at your jugular. But with this one, all you have to do is say, look, he is very diligently working to comply with the special prosecutor. He needs to spend his time making sure they get all the documents that they need. He doesn't have time to run for re-election. He needs to focus on running the country and complying with this investigation. Then, instead of ending up with Kamala, you end up with an open field where you can have Gavin Newsom, you can have Elizabeth Warren, you can have all of these other people who you know will run for president, throw their hat in the ring, and you don't necessarily have to end up with Kamala. You might, but it's not a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, it's so clean. There's no other way out for him or for the party. So then you can go down the road of who set him up and all that stuff, which I don't think is necessary. But do you think this ends his time as president? Do you think he's going to run again or no? Because of this or for any other reason?
Well, I don't think this in and of itself is the knockout blow. One of the aspects of this story that should worry him is that there might be a lot more that we don't know. And I say that because we know that his son, Hunter, who is a crackhead, and we know that drug addicts are people who lie, cheat, and steal to get more drugs. We know that he had access to this garage. He posted on social media that he redid the garage for his dad for, I think it was a birthday or Christmas or something like that. So he had access to the contents of that garage without any other person being there with him. If he did something with those documents, let's say Joe doesn't even know about it, that will come out in this investigation. So by opening up this can of worms, they're pulling at strings that involve activities that a drug addict may or may not have done. This is certainly territory that Joe Biden would probably like to avoid.
Yeah, great point. Honestly, pulling at strings that should have been pulled in the 2020 election, but were not because it wasn't convenient for the Democrats and the media to do that. I've been making the argument that I will believe it's not a setup when the media Paul Pelosi's the story and makes it go away. Because that's what they do with everything that makes them look bad. But for some reason, this story, they allow the drip, 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 a little bit more every day, keep it in the news, keep it in front of mind. And I think they only do that when they're trying to propagandize something. So that's my theory behind it. That being said, that and other issues, how do you think Biden politically should move forward in this next year or so?
Well, he has to make sure that this does not become all-consuming, because it's very easy to allow that to happen, because there will be new developments, there will be people commenting on it, there will be congressional investigations, people are going to write books about this, and it's very easy to allow that to consume all of your time, and your legislative agenda just gets put on the back burner. If he does that, that would be a massive, massive mistake. The other thing that he has to worry about these next 2 years is that while he has wider margins in the Senate, which is another vote, he also has a number of red state Democrats up for reelection next cycle. And when Joe Manchin is up for reelection, or John Tester, or Sherrod Brown, or any number of Democrats who are going to be running in very tough races, they act very differently than they act when they have 4, 5, 6 years left on their term. If you're Joe Manchin and you vote with Joe Biden 100% of the time, and then you go back to West Virginia in the same news cycle and say you're your own man, that is a very difficult product to sell. He has to behave like a West Virginia Democrat these next 2 years. Otherwise, he's gone. The same thing is true with John Tester and the others that I mentioned. And that means that if he comes out with, let's say there's a Supreme Court vacancy, he ran on the subject of abortion. That's what helped Democrats do so well in the midterm elections. He has to get all of these people on board. So you can't come in with someone who is regarded by Joe Manchin as being a nut and then expect to get his vote. That would be political suicide for Joe Manchin. So he's got to have an idea of a nominee for the Supreme Court and other sensitive judicial posts that will have widespread support within the Democratic caucus. And that's not what he's done historically. He's just thought that out of partisan loyalty, they'll have to support anyone I nominate. Well, these next 2 years may be different.
So you're saying Manchin, West Virginia, voted for the whatever bill it was, the transportation bill or whatever. They were able to buy him off for that. But you're saying in these next 2 years, it'd be much more difficult to pull that off for Manchin and others.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, if you're a baseball player, baseball players, when they're in a contract year, do much better than they do after they sign an 8-year deal with many millions of dollars. These Democrats are all in contract years. They want to stay in the Senate. They don't want to get voted out. They don't want to move on to do something else. So they have to behave in very different ways than they would otherwise behave.
Hey, thanks for watching that clip. That was from our special about the first 2 years of the Joe Biden presidency and just reflecting on all the failures. If you feel hopeless about the moment and about what's next, if I can forward you to our podcast, it's called Politics by Faith. And this is the premise of the podcast, is we take these moments of anxiety and hopelessness and we find what is good and true. And you leave that feeling very good, I assure you. So if you can download that podcast and give it a chance and check it out, it's called Politics by Faith. Anywhere you download, listen to podcasts.